Okay, so let's talk about the Surface Duo because I feel like there's a lot of things that people don't really understand about it, and I've got some thoughts, and I would just like to spit it all out. So I actually almost came really close to pre-ordering this device because on Monday, the Microsoft team and Panos Panay, being the amazing salesperson that he is, actually somehow managed to make me very interested in this device in a way that was more than just, hey, let's just sit on the sideline and see what happens. So on Monday, I attempted to pre-order this device, and then my pre-order failed because I realized that using my company Dell account only works on devices that are not in pre-order but are actually released. So I figured I was just going to wait for it, but then I was running errands and I ended up grabbing a Note 20 Ultra, which is not this device. I pick it up on Friday. But that's not the point. The point of this is really just the misconception of the Duo, who it's targeted for, what it can potentially do for users, and really just for the history of mobile computing, in the future, and some of the downsides and potential downfalls of the device as a whole. So I kind of just want to talk about everything really quick. And the first and foremost thing really is just the fact that it is a foldable device, and that a lot of people are kind of just instantly gut reaction comparing it to the Galaxy Fold, which isn't inherently an incorrect thing to do, right? Like, that's a natural thing, but you have to consider it kind of like if this were a computer, it's the equivalent of looking at a dual monitor setup, like using two screens versus one large ultra wide screen. Those are two different things that can be utilized in two very separate ways. So if you're trying to focus on something like media consumption, an ultra wide monitor is fantastic. It's great for that. But if you're trying to do something, let's say for work, then maybe, just maybe, a dual screen device is going to be better for that. And Microsoft is kind of taking that angle. And even since back in 2019 or whenever they revealed it last year, they specifically said that, hey, we're trying to create our own category and our own thing of mobile computing on the go. And that's kind of been their whole angle. And I think somewhere along the lines, people kind of got lost in the hype, and obviously in the lack of communication in between those like 9 or 10 months or whatever. And people immediately just think, well, this is going to be just like every other foldable phone, because Microsoft hasn't really done a fantastic job up until now of stating why they're doing what they're doing. And in their little interview press conference thing, they show off all of these different potential use case scenarios of how two screens can be very useful, even if you are not using one app, right? Like, you could use something like, you could use Google Chrome on one tab and not go full screen and just use just one whole screen. Or when I say full screen, I mean spanning both of your monitors. But you can have Chrome on one display, and then you can have like your text messages on another. The classic example they use is like having OneNote on one display and then having a book on the other, and you can take notes and all that stuff. But if you think about it in like a realistic sense, because a lot of people are misunderstanding the fact that Microsoft has paired with Google to create a custom experience and bake it into their API so that any Android app runs more or less flawlessly on the Duo in any way that they want. So that means if you want to span it to make it full screen, the app will take up both screens, no problem. If you want to just have it on one monitor or one display, then that's totally fine too. The part that developers have to put in the extra legwork is when you do span, do you want a custom action to come around? That means, like, if you do something like Google Chrome, do you want a second Chrome tab to instantly pop up on the second monitor? Or, I'm going to say monitor a lot, I'm sorry. Or do you just, go the default way that's already baked into the software and just have Chrome just take up both screens? That's the kind of thing that developers have to decide if they want to do, but that's not a bad thing at all. Realistically, it's going to be really good for more than just business people. I think a lot of people immediately associate Microsoft and they see Office products, so they immediately just go business. But then they're forgetting about people who just generally want to be productive and not necessarily just for work and business applications. Like, a good example, and why I'm personally interested in this, is because I'm an app developer, and for me, being able to do something like have a test build of my app on one screen and then on the other screen have like my Firebase console open to see what exactly is going on in the back end, I think that's really cool. Or if you're just a bum, and I do this a lot too with my current phone, and if you have YouTube just in like picture-in-picture mode and you're like sending a text to somebody while watching a video or browsing the internet, now you can just do what you would do on a computer, and you would just have YouTube open on one screen and then Chrome open on the other, which is great. honestly, I think this is a really good tool for people who just want to be generally more productive. And that's the spin that they're taking this on, is that you can use this in several different ways. And they're really trying to take advantage of not just 2 screens, but the form factor of not having one giant screen, right? Like the 360 hinge, which I think is fantastic. And if you guys have used any Microsoft product in recent time, you'll know that their hinges are solid, both in the metaphorical and the physical sense. But I've owned several Surface products in the past, and really the versatility really does change how you view a product. And I think they know that when they build this, because the going from book mode to phone mode to Nintendo DS mode, I think is really smart. And I think there's going to be special use cases for each and every one of those. And I don't think it's just a gimmick, but the problem comes around when you view the hardware, that's super sleek hardware, and then you view it when compared to other devices. Because this isn't a vacuum, right? Like there are things that we have to compare it to, because that's just kind of the market landscape we're in right now. Especially at $1,400, you expect a certain type of premium, not just in the build quality, but in specs. And I really hate talking about specs in this way, because a lot of spec head nerds tend to think that if this doesn't have bleeding edge specs, then it's instantly going to be a failure at $1,400. And we'll talk about failure later here. But, there are things that Microsoft is trying to do to really nail the core fundamentals of creating this really positive software hardware experience just using the Duo. And I think they're going to do that part really well. But there are other pain points that are going to come across to most users, and then it's going to kind of skew them away if they don't fix this in future iterations. And I think they know that. Things like the camera being a really critical part, primarily not just for like video conferences and stuff, which are very important, and that's why they put it in the location that they put it in. But Microsoft has to be smart enough to realize that this product, while it is going to be a fantastic mobile computer, it is still fighting for the spot in your pocket to be your phone, which means that, one day they are going to have to focus on getting a good camera, because that's the type of premium that you're paying for. The spot about the battery is the really big deal breaker for me, because a 3,500 milliamp hour battery to power 2 screens is really poor. And as much as I would love to believe that Microsoft really focused on optimization and really hammered down on making sure that this device can last as long as it can, it's the fact that they're still running Android and a Snapdragon 855 leads me to believe that their battery optimization can't be that great. And this device, it can't last that long. There's no way, because something like, let's say, the Note 10, like the regular size Note 10, had a very similar battery size, and that phone had an average of 4.5 to maybe 5.5 hours of screen on time max. But if you take that, and let's say you've got twice the screens, and yeah, the Note has a really big screen and it's beautiful. So let's say even if at 1.5 times the screens, that's going to take a huge hit on the battery. It has to. So I don't know. I'm not really concerned about the fact that, this thing only has 6 gigs of RAM and an 855. I get it. It's experimental. And you guys have to remember that they planned this device so far out in advance that there's just no way that they could have gotten an 865 or 865 plus. There's just no way. The part that both fascinates and frustrates me about this as well, the actual hardware, is that it's really slim. And this is super nerdy, but somebody on Thingiverse made a 3D print of the device, a 1-to-1 scale of the actual device, so you can see and feel it in your hands. And I printed it naturally. And it's a really thin device, and I think that's going to be a marvel of engineering when people hold it and pick it up in their hands for the first time. I think so many users are going to get this aha moment where they figure out why the device was built as it was. But seriously, you could have made the device 2 millimeters bigger and just slapped in a bigger battery. Nobody would have been upset with that. And honestly, they probably would have been able to fit in NFC as well. There are other complications, right? It's not as easy as, let's just go to Autodesk and make this thing bigger. It's not that simple. I get it. But the device is incredibly thin, and they're really trying to go for that beautiful Gen 1 product, so it doesn't look as messy as something like the Galaxy Fold's first iteration, which really wasn't that messy, but kind of. But with all of that being said, with, there are the other aspects of it. No expandable storage, kind of sucks. No NFC, kind of sucks. That is a deal breaker for some other people. The battery is a deal breaker for me. NFC is a deal breaker for others. What else? No 5G support. Honestly, if 5G is a deal breaker for you, you should probably reconsider your priorities in 20. But that's neither here nor there. I think Microsoft has a very solid product in their hands, and I think if they can nail the core software experience, and if they can just kind of level their expectations and understand what the tech community doesn't understand, which is marketing, that at $1,400 and as an early adopter, most people are just not going to be paying this much, and their sales numbers aren't going to be. They're not going to be high. Period. They just won't. Microsoft knows this, I would hope, and if they can take the data that they get from that, and then if they can view what numbers they do meet as a success, and then build a version 2 or a version 3, I think this actually could change how we view mobile computing. Not for everybody, but similar to how 2-in-1s eventually came to replace some laptops and some tablets, I think we can see the dual screen devices eventually taking the spot for the people who want to be productive, for those business people, for the people who really do want to be a little more mindful of their time. But that being said, there's still the very realistic conversation of at $1,400, why would you not buy a Note 20 Ultra, which is $100 cheaper with a better screen, an S Pen, significantly better cameras, expandable storage, water resistance, and blah 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 blah. List goes on. That conversation, even if they do build a version 2, version 3, still has to be had. And I think that, again, Microsoft knows this and they want to carve their own lane. And I think a lot of people who are skeptical of this product are not really looking at it in the right light. And that's partially Microsoft's fault, because they only really brought that up twice, right? Like during their initial launch, or during their initial reveal, and in this press conference. And I think if they would have done a better job at that, and if tech blogs would understand the marketing a little bit better and understand the logistics a little bit better, rather than just comparing it to Samsung and Apple sales numbers, which are ludicrously high. Of course Microsoft it's going to be a failure. There are so many people that are just instantly labeling this as failures, and I don't think the idea is to sell a lot and make a bunch of profit right now. I think the idea is, let's change how we perform our day-to-day. And I think they're trying to capture this lightning in a bottle moment again. So we'll see. I'm very excited about the Duo and what it holds in the future, even though I'm no longer purchasing it. I think that maybe when the Duo 2 or Duo 3 comes out, I'll probably end up grabbing it. But I don't know. Am I crazy? Am I baseless off of this? As cheesy and as YouTube-ish as that sounds, I do want to hear what anybody has to say about this. If you stumbled across this random guy's drive from work talking about the Surface Duo, let me know what you think. Let me know if the Duo is something that genuinely fascinates you, or if it's something that if you're picking up, or if you're not picking it up because of X or Y. Did I miss a point? There's probably a bunch of other stuff that I really do wanted to bring up in this video, but this is all off the cuff, so I'm definitely missing something. But either way, let me know what you guys think. And I guess I don't know. I guess I'll talk to y'all later. If you guys want car videos, then I'll do more car rant videos about random things. I don't know. This channel doesn't have any kind of consistency or continuity or whatever. So thanks again for watching. Peace.